So you take a tendon, you screw it into a place of a ligament, and you expect it to behave as a ligament. No. So
Yeah.
yeah, limit hydration, limit food before bed, and sleep in a colder room. Those are three things that you have to take care of. All the other things, if nothing hurts, something is not right. So, depending on the pain, there is different kinds of pains. That's why the warm up for artificial pitch should be as during the travel. If we tend to use the compression socks all the time, even if it's a short period of time, because the compression socks are used to.
Welcome to the Awarenezzz Podcast. In today's episode, we had a chance to speak with Toni Nenadic. Toni is the head of physical therapy at NK Celje, which is a team in the first division of Slovenian Football League. Toni has also had the experience to work in tennis for more than 8 years, working with athletes like Novak, Djokovic, or Milos Raonic. Yeah, they're a little bit good, right? In this episode, we went into everything related to physical therapy and how important it is to take care of the habits outside of the massage table, like nutrition and sleep. In this episode, we also went into the specific phases of the journey of an athlete that's coming back from an injury. So, if you're an athlete that wants to prevent injuries, or if you're an athlete that's injured and wants to know how to recover from it in the best way possible, then this episode is definitely for you. Enjoy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of the Awareness Podcast. Today, we're here with our guest, Toni Nenadic. Thank you very much for being with us and introduce yourself to the people.
Thank you guys for inviting me. It's a real honor and one of my favorite things to talk with young athletes and in their development phases. So really nice knowing you guys and getting to know you. So basically, what can you expect behind my name? As you said, my name is Toni Nenadic, and I've been a physio all of my life. But I tend to go away from that specific word physio, because the physio encapsulates you in one specific world. So basically, what I do is I help athletes get better and stay healthy. So what I am, I would describe myself as a physio, a coach, a manual therapist, but I think you guys in US have a specific wording for it. It's athletic trainers, if I'm right. Yeah, so I work with a lot of professional tennis players, such as Novak Djokovic, Vasek Pospišil, Milos Raonic, Dona Vekic, Petra Martic, Laslo Djere, and so on, so on. I worked in a couple of football clubs, and my current role is head of physical therapy and medical staff in NK Celje in Slovenia. It's first Slovenian league. We're currently playing conference league, so we surpassed the group stage. We won in group stage, so we're playing AEK Athens on Thursday. So I'm looking forward to that game. So basically, that's short of what I am.
In a
And
nutshell.
sorry,
In a nutshell, trying to
in
encapsulate.
a nutshell, yeah. Just like a quick, so I don't like talking about myself a lot. So it's really hard for me just to say what I am and who I work with. Yeah.
Oh, but it's great. I mean, you just showed you have a little bit of experience. You've worked with a little bit of good athletes. But Toni, just to get right into it, I'm gonna start with a piece of data, which I imagine you like your data. But recent data in sports biomechanics shows that artificial turf can produce up to 40% more rotational traction than natural grass. This effectively means the ground doesn't give when a player plants their foot. So you mentioned to me when we spoke the last time how a lot of athletes have to be aware of artificial grass and natural grass and the differences between both of them. What should athletes be aware of when considering the surface in which they're going to play?
So it's true that the artificial grass gives a lot more friction than the natural grass. So basically, uh, it has less energy absorption. So when you plant your foot, you have to have in mind that when you're on a natural turf, you're gonna slip a little bit. The turf is softer than the artificial grass. The artificial grass, usually when they make it, they're trying to save on budget, as every club is. So they don't usually put some stuff to absorb the impacts. Um, they just put it on concrete, and they put on the black thing. I don't know what is it called. I always
Rock.
forget that.
Tough
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, the rub bits. So basically, there is a higher percentage of tendinopathies that are occurred on artificial grass. So from my perspective, having that in mind is when you work with an athlete, you always have to prep him differently than you would if you would preparing for natural grass. So because of that friction, there's more injuries to the ankles, to the knees, but more of a way of tendinopathies because the torque doesn't give so much, so the tendons tend to have more load on them. And uh, if you're not prepared, uh, it just happens. You know, it's just repetitive load, and if you don't manage your load during the week. Let's say you're not going to get injured if you play 3 times a week on artificial grass. But if you don't have proper load management and you go into 7 sessions a week on artificial grass and they change the turf immediately, you're going to get some injury for sure if you don't have the coaches that are preparing you for the change of pitches or they're preparing you on specific load demands of the sport you're playing.
I see. I see. And how do you prepare yourself to be able to withstand the load that you're putting in your tendons in artificial grass?
Uh, to prepare your tendons, yeah. So one thing is, as a physio, from a physio perspective, I would say, is that when you do the warm up, you do it a little bit more just to uh, do the movements that are going to prepare the ankle joint and knee joints for that kind of load. But also, the trainer that is preparing you, we have a conditioning coach that takes over after the physio is done, who warms up the team, does the specific drills for changing directions so the body gets used to it. You know, there is a specific warm up, and it's called warm up just because you have to warm up for something. You know, when you go to the gym, you're gonna do some repetitive movements. You're gonna warm up for them, of course, but you're not gonna do some shoulder circles and stuff like that. If you're gonna bench press, you're gonna do light bench presses for a couple of times just so your joints and muscles get to know the movement. That's why the warm up for artificial pitch should be easy decelerations on it, changing of directions, you know, just so your whole body can adjust to the friction of the artificial grass. You have to prep correctly so you can avoid those kind of things. Because if you don't warm up properly, you know, there was a podcast I was listening. It's like, oh, what's the difference between professional athlete and an athlete who wants to be a professional athlete? And they showed a picture of two football players, and they said it's 20 centimeters. They show them warming up on a line when they do repetitive movements running there. And there was this athlete who went over the line and one athlete who just stopped before the line. So it was measured that it was 20 centimeters. So you didn't do the proper warm up by 20 centimeters. And if you did that a couple of times, it adds up in meters, you know? So one guy warmed up more than you did. And you're thinking, oh, I stole 20 centimeters. I'm going to be more I'm going to be more fresh and stuff like that. So no, just like do your warm ups properly.
So
Yeah.
basically warming up the ankles and the knees and then going through the movement in a slower pace. And I also wanted to ask you, you always talk about like going from natural grass to artificial grass. It's also something you do in training, let's say, like you would do if your team has only artificial grass and goes to natural grass on the weekend for a game. It's also something to adapt.
Oof. So here in Europe, since you're from Germany, you know that we have, I think it's 90% real grass. So we don't have a lot of artificial grasses, artificial pitches, and we tend to avoid training on them just because of the increased amount of injuries. So there is our junior team in NK Celje is training on artificial pitch and usually goes for games on natural pitches. And the thing is that just like they are decreasing the load and adapting on more explosive movements and trying to mimic all the movements that you would have on natural grass, because you also have to have in mind the temperature you're playing on when you're playing on artificial pitches, because natural grass doesn't heat up as the artificial pitch. And also when the artificial pitch heats up, that heat goes through your joints, through your body, so you have to hydrate more. So when you have that all in mind, it's so many variables, parameters. So if I say what should you do, I don't know, because I don't know your load during the week. I don't know how you prepared for that game. Are you going to play a team that is uh, in top three clubs, or you're going to play a team that is in lower three clubs? Depending on the style of play. Also, there is a lot of variables to have in mind if you're
More information.
preparing for that.
You
Yeah.
just talked about heat. Like I think it's so underrated if you play on artificial grass, because this summer we just got a new pitch, so we have a lot of the turf bits, the black bits, so you can feel like the heat coming up from
This was my like, I'm from Colombia, right? So from the coast of Colombia, so you get a lot of sun, and we don't have seasons, so it's like that all year round. And also, most of the pitches that we have are natural grass. Some of them I wouldn't even call them grass, but a lot of them are like some of them are artificial. So what we would do you guys know, I don't know how it's called, like the thing that women use to like absorb, like when they're in the period. I don't know if we should be talking about that in the podcast, but we would put that in the shoe to like kind of absorb the heat. I don't know if that will work, but I wasn't taking into consideration the fact that it was heating up the joints more, and also the fact that you have to hydrate more. So I think it's very valuable for a lot of guys to know that they should be aware of the temperature of the pitch in which they'll be playing. And now that we're talking a little bit about like the weather and the environment that you're playing at, how does the altitude in which you play affect also the way in which the athlete should approach the game, and the way in which your work is affected as a physiotherapist?
Oh man, you're going for the high quality questions immediately, huh? So
Of
yeah,
course.
the uh, I would do that if you don't mind. I would compare football to tennis. So yeah, basically what it is, in tennis, that's a really specific kind of sport, because you're changing climate conditions every week. So there is currently happening in the U.S. was this week was last week was Indian Wells. Now is Miami. It's totally two different sports where you play. So what we tend to do is when you go to Indian Wells, since it's high altitude and dry air and everything, you have to go at least the latest 2 days before starting of the tournament. Why? Because you have to get adjusted to the altitude. There is less oxygen, and it can disrupt your sleep quality, and resting heart rate goes a little bit more up. So you have to get adjusted for it, and you have to train in those conditions. You have to get adjusted to the high altitude, in the meaning of breathing the air that is there. But also considering that when you go to a higher altitude, you're playing tennis. You have a small ball that is made out of rubber. So
Okay.
yeah, so in high altitudes, the ball goes faster. It's like a freaking rock, because and it's dry air, so it's really really fast. And then next week after that, you go to Miami. What happens there? High humidity, low altitude. So you have to get adjusted. We usually like to joke around when we get out of the plane. It's like a wet towel smacks you across the face in Miami when you get from Indian Wells. So what happens there? The rubber is the tennis ball is like softer, and it tends to fluff more. So it's slower. So why in Indian Wells, when you look at the statistics, uh, there is I think there is if you look at the statistics, I don't know if I'm sure here, but since I worked there, all of the players with big serves do better in Indian Wells than they do in Miami, because in Miami they go through really uh, through longer rallies just because the ball is slower. And also there you have to take in consideration the strings on the racket, how hard are you going to string them and everything. It's so many details that you have to have in mind when playing tennis in those conditions. And this year, since you guys are going to be hosting the World Cup, it's going to be so fun watching that, because they're going to change time zones. They're not going to sleep properly. They're going to change altitudes all the time. I think every 3 or 4 days, I think it's. So it's going to be fun to watch. It's really going to be fun to watch, because I want to see how altitude is going to affect the conditions of play, because I haven't had an opportunity to see a tournament in cross that's going to span across half a globe, I have to say, because
Yeah,
it's true.
yeah,
So it's going to
definitely.
be fun. But
I mean, it's gonna be fun to watch. I don't know if it's gonna be the funniest thing for the physiotherapists working, because I mean, especially if there's gonna be more injuries. So now that we're talking about that, how do you, like, as a physiotherapist, how do you strategize, or how do you plan accordingly, let's say, to an athlete that's going to face a change in conditions, right, a change in altitude. So like, if it makes it easier, let's put an example. Let's say an athlete or a team, in whatever context you want to put it, is going to travel, let's say, next week to a place where there's a different altitude. How do you start planning for that, and what do you do?
uh, basically, you try to. For me, I can be wrong. What I'm saying, I can be wrong, but this is what I've been doing the whole time. Uh, you up the dosage of training, but not the specific training of, let's say, tennis or football. You do cardio more. You prep the heart for a higher frequency. So you get the body adjusted for higher needs of hydration in those, because higher altitudes requires more hydration, because the blood pumps more, so you need more water. And basically, as you've seen me, I'm drinking electrolytes all the time, just because I'm always outside on the sun and everything. So you have to have that in consideration. And also, it's kind of easier when you have one player in tennis than when you have 26 in football, because uh, you can manage one player, but when you have to manage 25, it's kind of hard, because you cannot tell him, okay, drink this, but you have to tell that to 25 persons. So you up the cardio training, and you up the hydration, and also because you're spending more calories because of the higher heart rate, you have to eat more.
Hmm.
So, but what we're saying is something that I've been taught through these years, so maybe I'm wrong. So have that also in mind, that what I'm saying,
You
yeah,
have
I
the
can be wrong.
empirical data. I mean, it's worked for you, so that's accurate enough, right?
Look, for this season in NK Celje, what we having is in first half season we had 86 percentage of 86% of available players during the season, and currently we have 94%. So we're doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, and look at Real Madrid right now.
So I would just say, like, talking about the numbers, you can see the Madrid squad right now. I don't know if you followed the Madrid squad, but because I just talked to Camilo before, I saw a video talking about the new stadium and this being related to the injuries they have, because they have like a transformative stadium, so they have like multi events. So I don't know, maybe you can give us some insights on this. Maybe that's the reason why they're getting more injured, because the soil is less thick than other stadiums, and below the soil is like a metal plate.
I think the guys who designed the stadium were thinking about it. So because Real Madrid has enough money to take that in mind, and also they have, if you look at their data and uh, staff they have, it's enormous staff that they have. That they have nutritionists that is always watching them. They have, I think they have the sleep analysis and everything. So I cannot go into detail because I have not worked in those conditions, and it would be really hypocritical of me to be talking about high level sport in Real Madrid because I have not worked there. I can only compare it to what we've been doing here with low resource and managing all the things that we have. So I don't know if it would impact that much because, as you know, they tend to water the pitches just before the games, and also they tend to water the pitches in half times, so that lowers the temperature. I don't think that it can affect the shock absorption that much as we've talked about artificial pitches.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
So
see.
maybe just an unlucky season.
uh Look, if I could check their internal data as we have in Celje, the conditioning coach and me are always uh, we have this Excel table that we put in the daily load of a player, his maximum heart rate during the day, how many meters he's ran, what was. So we have, sorry for the saying, in a shit ton of parameters. I have to say it like that. And also, when somebody gets injured, I usually, when the player comes, I try to ask him as much questions as I can, just to see his history of injuries, so we can have the prediction of possible injuries and work on that, but also to prevent it, because my job as a physio is not to work with somebody who is injured. My job is to prevent that injury from happening. If the injury happens, my job was not good, you know? My job is good if I have a high percentage of availability of players. So that's my way of thinking, and it
Yeah,
usually costs me a lot because I try to give 150% of me, but
yeah,
you don't get also that much in return, because the biggest issue is you have 24 hours in a day. I have them for 4 to 5 hours a day. I can tell them what they can do with the rest of the 20 hours, but I cannot be their mom, wife, and be there pulling their sleeve, eat this, have this. I cannot tell them I have a player. If he's gonna listen to this, he's gonna know who he is. Yesterday after the game, we were traveling in the bus, and I tell him, "Okay, you're gonna come home. I know it's gonna be midnight and everything, but please, considering your hamstrings, please do 5 to 10 minutes of mobility because you've been sitting for 3 hours in a bus." Okay, I call him this morning. Did you do your mobility? No, I was playing Counter Strike. Okay, yeah. So see, I cannot be that guy who is pulling them, but
yeah,
also I have to be a friend to them,
yeah.
but also I have to have the authority to tell them what to do.
Of course, and I think this perfectly transitions us to the next point that I wanted to talk about, and it's those 20 hours that they're not with you. You mentioned the importance of them, uh, like taking care of those 20 hours. Like, what are the main components that they have to take care of? So we know we have sleep, we have nutrition, but what is the importance of each of these factors, and how should they take care of this?
Yeah, so what I wrote here in my notes is something that probably you guys are gonna be useful to you guys. It's something that I've picked up from working in tennis for 8 years, and it's been doing wonders for me. So in those 20 hours, uh, you have to adjust those 20 hours to yourself. So 1 hour with me, and 1 hour with the coach, and 1 hour with a trainer. Have that in mind, that we're doing the best possible that we can to prep you for the next 20 hours. Because if you go home and just sit on the couch and scroll through TikTok and everything, I don't mind you doing that. But also, you have to have 1 hour where you're going to do a little bit of work on yourself. So, with I'm the transitioning generation. I was there before internet happened. So yeah, I'm that old, So I'm the transitioning generation where we didn't have phones growing up, and we were mostly on the pitches. And when the coach told us to rest the afternoon, no, we went to play for 4 to 5 hours more. Now, what I tend to see is just like, you're going out of the club, you say bye to me and everything. The first thing you get is your phone. I'm not gonna say you don't use it, but just have in mind that you're brainwashing yourself. You're destroying your peripheral view just by focusing on one thing when you should be aware of your body in space. So my hobby is getting choked by other people. I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu for a hobby, you
Okay.
know, and what I like to do is I don't use my phone 1 hour before the training. And this is going to apply what I've been talking about right now. I don't use it because I want to let my mind wander and prepare for what I'm about to do. Because if I go to jujitsu and I've been scrolling through my phone 5 minutes earlier, and I've been looking through the techniques, I've been looking through this, and that. Of course, if my wife calls, I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna get killed if I don't. So, uh, if I overload my mind with unnecessary information, I'm not gonna be able to see the crosses, the lines, uh, the sparring partner, what he's gonna use. I'm not gonna be able to connect those puzzles in a way that I would be able to if I prepped my mind correctly. So what I tell them is like just take half an hour off, sit in silence, just let your mind wander. Why? Because probably if you did today, you did because we have a new coach. So I'm telling this to them now even more than I was than before. It's like you're doing new type of movements. You're doing new tactics. You're doing this. You're doing that. Just sit half an hour in peace, drink coffee, try to think about what you did in training today. Why? Because when you come tomorrow, you're going to do repetition, repetition, repetition. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard until one time, poof, clicks, and it's here. Oh yeah, this is what I've been training for. Okay, this position. Okay, I turn my body to receive the ball, but I can take one touch and just pass it down. Okay, not positioning my body so when I receive the ball I have to use my momentum to turn around, but the player is already coming here. In professional sports, it's not that seconds matter, it's milliseconds that matter. And the adrenaline rush that sports give you, and I hope you guys have experienced that, the adrenaline rush where 1 second is longer than 1 second, when you can see all the positions, all the transfers and everything. It's like in jiu-jitsu, what I do is like you spar for 5 minutes, but it feels like an hour. Why? Because 1 second, when the adrenaline hits your brain and it starts working, you see 10 different ways to go out of this, but you also replay all those 10 ways. What if he does this, if he died? And then you realize it's only been 1 second. Okay, you have to prep your mind. And also, if you prep your mind, you know that you have to prep your body also. Do 15 minutes of mobility. That is something that it's going to accumulate over time and it's going to give you only benefits. You cannot do too much mobility. You
Mm.
can do too much mobility if you already have a genetical predisposition to be hypermobile like me. I have to do a lot of strength training to prep my joints for any kind of movements because I'm hypermobile, but it's my genetics. But
Mm.
if you do, let's say, this is a tennis player's routine. When you wake up in the morning, just like do your readiness check. Just sit with yourself, just check your body, try to move a little bit. Okay, you're gonna feel if you're recovered or not. If you're not recovered, you're gonna feel which part of your body has not recovered properly. Okay, so let's say your right leg is a little bit stiffer than your left leg. Perfect. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna do a little bit of mobility. I'm gonna do a little bit of jumping just to do uh, just to start some blood flow into those joints. You have to have in mind that you have been sleeping for at least 7 to 8 hours. You have not been consciously moving. You've been in a state of you have not been eating for 7 to 8 hours. You have not been drinking to 7 or 8 hours. So take some water, do a morning readiness check, just try to feel your body how it is. And then if you feel something is not moving properly, move it. Take 15 minutes. It's like have a half a liter of water, maybe some electrolytes, because that's just to replenish your body a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if If you want to do dynamic movements, that's okay, but don't overdo it. I see some people waking up in the morning going straight for the push-ups. Quick way to get injured. You
Mm.
know, just move a little bit. The perfect way is just do a little bit of, I don't know if you guys have watched Dragon Ball Z and
I mean,
when
I've
you were
heard of
growing up.
it and watched it.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm old. So what they usually do is just like just jump around a little bit, just do a little bit of skips, left, right, front, back. Just feel your body. Just do it, and you're gonna feel that uh, tension going through your body, and you're gonna feel the parts that are not moving properly, and just move them. It's so easy.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's great because I mean, although we always hear, you have to eat well, you have to sleep well, which of course are like some of the main things that you have to do when you're by yourself. But I think a lot of people overlook that
Yep.
awareness part that you're talking about of being aware on how your body is, being aware of on how it's feeling, and doing something depending on what the body is telling you. So as you mentioned, if you're feeling stiff on one leg, well then do something about it. And if we think about it, I mean, if you're an athlete, that means that probably your priority throughout the day is your sport. So I don't think any athlete is not going to be able to put 15 minutes to just do some mobility work. And it just comes from you being aware and having that time to think, okay, how am I feeling? How is my body feeling? What did I do yesterday? Instead of going mindlessly through your day, going to the practice, and then after the practice is done, completely forgetting on what you did and how your body is feeling. So I think it's very important. And then you mentioned sleep a little bit there. How important is sleeping, and how much should an athlete be sleeping? And if you have any other advice on relation to sleeping.
Sleeping is, if I say it, it's really important. It is, but also what people have been looking at is like the daily calorie intake and also the daily sleeping schedule and everything. You should not be looking things daily. Just accumulate them during the week. You don't. First of all, I think I have to go one step back to explain this situation for you more.
Yeah.
Uh, you're not an athlete. You're a human first. You're an athlete by your choice. You have chosen to be an athlete, but you're a human first. If you don't prep your body and don't treat your body to be a human, you cannot be an athlete, because an athlete you can be till you're, I think, 35, 37, if you're lucky, 40s. But what after that? You're not an athlete. You're an ex-athlete, but you're still a person. You're a human first. So uh, train, sleep, eat, and hydrate to be uh, healthy for a longer periods of time. Being an athlete is like it's like comparing to me. I'm a physio. I'm not an athlete. It's just a job, and I want to be the best in my line of work as I can be. Also an athlete. But if you have daily stressors in your life, let's say you have a fight with your girlfriend, you're probably not going to sleep that good that night. You cannot sleep perfectly every time. But if you look at that during the week, let's say you manage to make up with your girlfriend in 2 days, so your sleeping has improved. During the 7 days, you had 3 days of bad sleep, but also you had 4 days of good sleep. I would say that's a good week. But if you got injured during that 7 days, then I would look at the parameters of your sleeping and everything.
Mm.
Until you're performing on optimal level, I'm not looking at those parameters. They're just the tools that we use to make you feel better, to understand your body, to help us help you be an athlete,
Mm-hmm.
but first a person, if you
Yeah.
understand. I
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
want you to go after the training and be exhausted so you cannot do anything in later. So I know today I went to the club. Today was regeneration day, so I did massages with the guys, mobility with the guys. I have one injured player that I did a little bit of isometrics with him because he's a freshly injured player.
Mhm.
So, and I know that the guys are gonna go for coffee later during the day. Why? Because it's sunny outside. And what do? You're gonna overload them so much that they're gonna sleep the afternoon, then maybe play some Counter Strike in the evening, and then go to sleep at 3, 4 a.m. You have to have that in mind. These are just the parameters we are looking to help you perform optimally, and
Mm-hmm.
then also to perform optimally outside of the pitch. You know,
Def-
if there is something I will tell you that can affect your sleep in a better way, it's colder room. And you have all those infos now on online and everywhere you can find it. Don't try to avoid screens 1 hour before the bed. Try this, try that. I mean, we cannot avoid that. You cannot make a perfect sleeping routine. If you do that, you're starting to be a robot. You're not a person anymore.
I
Uh,
see.
I like to wind down in the evening by watching TV. I like watching some shows. Currently, I'm addicted to some of the newer anime series and stuff like that. Of course, I'm gonna watch an episode more if it's entertaining. If it is it gonna affect my sleep? Probably, yeah. But I would not be concerned about it, because if I'm concerned about my sleeping, it's gonna be a stress factor. It's gonna raise my cortisol in my blood, so I'm gonna stress more. My sleeping is gonna be bad. I'm gonna be so annoyed tomorrow morning when I see those parameters on my phone that I have not been sleeping well, and it's gonna affect your whole day. So
Yeah.
yeah, limit hydration, limit food before bed, and sleep in a colder room. Those are three things that you have to take care of. All the other things are, how can I say, you don't have to do them, but it's beneficial if you can.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot be a they cannot be your master, because a lot of the times you're not going to be able to control them. So if you fully rely on them, the moment in which you don't have them, well, you're not going to be able to sleep. Let's say if you're every day you have to leave your phone 1 hour before the bed. What if you're traveling and if your schedule, I don't know, all of a sudden changes and you have to do something? Well, that day you're not going to be able to sleep well because you're stressed about it because you were not able to do so. So I think that that was also an important point. And you mentioned that you may have some bad sleep days and some good sleep days. What would you consider a good sleep day for an athlete?
If he wakes up and feels refreshed, because sleep is a tool that we use. We have to do it because if a person doesn't sleep, he's gonna die. You know, uh, if the sleep is good, when you wake up refreshed and you wake up without the alarm on a proper time you had to wake up, that means you had a good night of sleep. Why?
Mhm.
Because if the alarm has to wake you up, that means you're not getting enough sleep. You know, let's say it's here in Europe when it's summertime, I tend to wake up at 6 a.m. just because the sun is up. And my alarm is set to 6:30 because I like to drink my morning coffee with my wife, to talk to her a little bit and everything. I wake up at 6. I'm not gonna lay down in bed. If my body is starting to wake up, follow it. If you go back to sleep, you're gonna disrupt your sleep. You're gonna feel like shit after that. And
Definitely.
it's a problem, You have to the problem is the people are with whoops, the garments and everything, and sleep tracking. The people are watching the data too much, and they're so concerned about the data that they're forgetting that if I had a bad night of sleep, but I feel good, and the data is saying I slept bad, but I feel good, who's gonna be the judge of that? Me feeling good, or the data that said I did not sleep good?
And
You
also
know,
the same with pre-game rituals, like not
Totally agree.
completely same thing. But let's say someone has a pre-game ritual, it doesn't work out. It's like, oh no, I'm gonna play bad today. I can't play good today.
Yeah, it's
Same
what I
with
was
sleep.
saying.
Let's say you go to get 7 hours 30 of sleep because you normally feel good with that. And then I don't know, you can't sleep at night because you're stressed and you get like 7 hours of sleep. I think a lot of people are stressed about too much about it than just living with it.
Definitely, it's
yep.
like it's what I was saying. Like you cannot let those numbers be your master, because then you're pretty vulnerable to when it doesn't happen. And a lot of the time, it's not going to happen because there are so many things that we cannot control. So I really like the point that you were talking about that. And then just to finish that part of like what to do outside of the field. What about nutrition? What are like how what is the relationship between nutrition and I mean you've talked a lot about hydration as well. What is that relationship between nutrition and hydration and your injury prevention
Okay, so I
and
wrote down some.
injury treatment as well? If
Yeah, injury treatment is important, but as I was saying earlier, it's like if you get injured, my job
definitely,
was not done.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so you said about nutrition. So basically, what I've been looking at this couple of years is I've been looking at the body on a cellular level. Sorry, my English is not my first language, and I have to take a little bit of time.
Perfect.
Uh, so if you look at the energy consumption on a cellular level, you have to have in mind that the proteins are the foundation of the cell. They're building the cell, but also what do we use for energy? We use sugars, so carbohydrates. Uh, and I talked a lot about hydration. Why? Because we're 70 to 80% water. And if you are dehydrated, your cells are dehydrated, there is a higher risk of injury. Why? Because your body is not in an optimal state of hydration. You don't have enough water. Your blood is different. Your muscle quality is different. So now maybe also everything that I'm saying is from my experience. Okay, so uh,
That's what we're talking to you because you have a
yeah,
lot of
because I don't want to talk in general because if I say something, because a lot of people are going to see this. I don't want people to take this for granted because this is my experience. But an experienced therapist, when he puts his hands on an athlete, he can feel the hydration of the body. He can feel the quality of the muscle he's working with. So
mm,
that is thousands and thousands of people that have passed through these hands. And I'm gonna go off topic a little bit now. Uh, I just counted the all the jerseys. Have I said it right? Jerseys.
yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, jerseys that I've been counting through them, and I have 134 jerseys of athletes that I have helped get back.
130.
Yes, currently, and that is, and hopefully some of them are going to be listening to this. There is also a lot of them that they still haven't sent the jerseys over. So when I'm gonna be making my office, I'm gonna put all of those jerseys on the wall.
Yeah.
So a lot of them have asked me, how do you feel it? I don't know. It's just like with the experience, you can feel the different structures of the body. And when you press on quad muscles, you can feel how the quality of muscle is elastic. And by
Okay.
that state, you can see how hydrated he is. If he didn't drink a lot of water, it's different. It's I'm not gonna go into details, but it has a different quality of feel under your arms, under your hands. Sorry. Uh, And I asked him, did you drink enough water today? No. How do you know? Okay. Before we start working, please go drink at least half a liter of water. Why? Because everything that I'm working is based on a blood flow. Because if you're not hydrated enough, when I'm doing my therapies, my treatments with you, I have to have that uh, new blood, old blood flow into the cells because why? With the old blood, you get the waste out of the system. It's like the sewer system. If the sewer is clogged, it's gonna accumulate. It's gonna break somewhere.
Yeah.
So if I can unclog it by getting the water and enough hydration in, you're gonna feel more refreshed. But you have to hydrate. And today I talked with financial director because last year I came to Celje as a new lead therapist, and I changed a lot of the nutrition stuff, supplementation stuff, sorry. And we changed the brand of the electrolytes, and the guys loved it. Why? Because you feel better if you have high quality electrolytes in your system. And when you have extended amount of physical practice and you know that you're gonna drink something that tastes good, you're gonna drink more of it, and then you're gonna get more electrolytes in, then you're gonna get more water in. and it just like stacks one another, and you get more fluids in your body, and it's good for me. It's good for your regeneration. You get more carbohydrates in, and that's going to get you more energy. And after the training, you get quality proteins. It's just like you have to stack the habits. It's not the one thing. I'm going to drink 3 scoops of protein today, but I'm not going to drink two tomorrow. Okay, that's okay. You met your protein goals yesterday. It's okay if you don't get them today. Get them tomorrow, but just get those nutritions in, because if you don't get it, let's say for 4 days you don't hit your protein goals, your cells are not going to regenerate as fast as you want them. You're going to feel like shit when you go to train. You're probably going to get injured. Why? Because there is nothing in your body that's going to help your body regenerate.
Yeah, definitely.
And how do you know if an electrolyte is a good quality electrolyte?
I'm not going to talk brands,
Yeah.
but you have to have a ratio of sugars with all the other stuff that is in the electrolytes, but also you have to see from what source the sugars are coming. Are they fast or slow absorbent? And depending on the activity, you have to see which ones you want. So always have to have two options: the fast one and the slow ones. Okay? Because you have to have your uh, glycogenic reserves full before the training, so you can use them while training, so you don't use your body's natural resources. So you're gonna get more fatigued. Uh, you're gonna be maybe later you're gonna be more tired and stuff like that. Why? Just because you drained all your body's natural resource of glycogen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And we already talked about, okay, the importance of being aware of how your body feels and what you're doing in training, being able to sleep well, right, and to eat well, and how this is done not in a day-to-day basis, but then also looking at it from a weekly perspective, and not letting data be your master, which I believe is a great concept. I want to go to the return to play, right? So I know how you mentioned how like the whole purpose of your job is to not let athletes get injured. But let's say in the case they get injured, like I am right now. So this is also like a personal question for me. Uh, how do you go through this return to play process, right? So run us a little bit through the phases of, let's say, an injury recovery. How like what are the things that you look at to be able to progress them?
So I'm an early stage rehab therapist. So I usually work with in the first couple of days of phases of destruction and phases of regeneration of the muscle, and then I send them to the rehab coach. Okay, so I'm gonna talk in my perspective, and I'm gonna talk about theirs, about their job. I know the basic stuff I'm supposed to know because we're uh, doing a job one after another. But one thing that we can I wrote down here because I wanted to prepare for this podcast properly. The one thing I realized, there is a huge difference between US and Europe in return to play protocols. Because let's say Europe is still not so data driven as the US. Uh, for me, maybe I'm gonna get a lot of hate from the colleagues. US system is much better because they're looking more the parameters, and here everything is financial based. An injured player is a waste of money, and you know that from your personal also perspectives. When you're injured, nobody takes care of you, stuff like that. But here, what are we looking? We have a specific list of tests depending on the injuries. So let's say I have this player that has an adductor strain and grade 1 muscle tear. So I tested him 3 days ago before we got the MRI results, and I saw that it was not a big rupture, because the test that I have used showed me that the muscle can still produce load, it can tolerate load, but depending on the person's pain, we go through there. So we go through stages. We first do isos, of course, just to this is something that I have. I'm a visual person. I like to visualize everything that I've been doing. When you do isos a lot, it's like if you have a ruptured muscle, you're gonna hold it in a tension during a larger period of time, and you're gonna help those muscle tissues be stuck together for a longer period of time. You're gonna help them heal properly, and that new tissue is going to be able to tolerate load as the old tissue, and that's the like the most important thing, that the new tissue can tolerate the same amount of load as the old tissue.
I
Okay,
see.
that's the first part.
Yeah.
And if a player returns to play the same as he was before, we didn't do the rehab properly. He has to go back stronger.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I see. I think that's great. And sometimes players even go back to, and I don't know if this happens a lot, but at least I'm talking from my experience. Go back to play in worse conditions than in which the ones that you got injured, right?
Oh, that's a huge issue. Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why they brought me here in this football club where I currently work, because I'm a huge fan of being better than yesterday,
Mm.
and whole of my life philosophy is based on Japanese philosophy of Kaizen, 1% better every day. So if let's say we have, you told me you had a knee surgery, right?
Yeah, so it's a osteotomy. So they cut
Oh,
a
okay.
piece the tibia and then for the tendon, yeah. And then a chondroplasty for my cartilage, my kneecap cartilage.
Okay, I'm not gonna talk about that because in that we can go in a lot of details and we're gonna lose each other. Let's say we take
Man, you can send me a long voice message afterwards.
man, you have my phone number. What else do you want? You can contact me whenever you want. I have a lot of info and I have time. I can talk to you later.
Really.
But let's take ACL surgery right now because ACLs are like top topic right now. So you take an ACL surgery. You have to have in mind because the amount of time that has to pass to ACL to graft to become a ligament. What everyone forgets, I don't know in US what they use. In Europe, they started using the patellar tendon for the graft. They usually took a hamstring graft, but it showed that it's high occurrence of re-injury and stuff. And so we don't
Okay.
go to that. We do patellar tendons now. So you take a tendon, you screw it into a place of a ligament, and you expect it to behave as a ligament. No, there is a biological process that happens in first 6 to 7 months of the surgery. The tendon starts to become a ligament. In tissue quality, it's becoming a ligament. So you cannot get the player back before 9 months. Why? Because in those 9 months, 6 to 9 months, the tendon is becoming a ligament in full. So you have to have proper amounts of loads, proper amounts of strength, proprioception, and in that period, you have 9 months of window to make a player better. So I can make you faster, I can make you stronger, I can make you more resilient. Why? Because I have time, and time is something you don't have in sports. When you're injured, everyone is looking at that from negative perspective. Okay, I got injured. Yeah, I'm gonna be out for a month, 2 months, 3 months in ACL, 9 months. Hey, I have 9 months to work on my upper body, to work on my lower limb strength. I can work on my back. Okay, I have this dysfunction of my pelvis. I can make it better. And so nobody sees the part where you can look at it in a positive way. That's the psychology of the injury. That's where I come in. Uh, I've been doing extreme sports for whole of my life. I was uh, first when I was a teenager, I was riding BMX, so I got injured a lot of times. After that, I started uh, doing all the I don't know downhill biking stuff like that. So everything where you can get killed, I like doing. Now I do jujitsu for fun. And when you look at when somebody gets injured, It's like a good opportunity to wind down, take a couple of steps back. Why? Because a couple of steps back means a couple of more in the future. So after the ACL surgery, after 9 months, if you have not met the parameters that I have set, and that is that you're faster, that you are stronger, that you have more power, I'm not gonna let you return to play. Why?
And faster,
Because we still
stronger, and more power than before the injury.
yes.
Okay.
In case you have the data, because when I came to this football club, they didn't have any data, so we have to retest them everyone at the start of the season. Now we have the data on the start of the season. We're going to have the data on the end of the season. But we also like to do, we use vault performance metrics. So we use the isometric plates to
Mhm.
measure the forces. We like to test them a lot on that, especially in the early stages. I told you I'm in early stage rehab. I like to use them, and I like to put the visual markers in front of them. I put my laptop in front of them and tell them, okay, step on the plates and now do a squat. Why? Because in ACL, in the early stages, doing squat is basically uh, uh, impossible. Sorry, I was trying to find a word. And then when he sees that the healthy leg has more force through it than the operated leg, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I see the asymmetry. What can I do to make it better? And
Yeah.
why do I have a huge success rate on return to full range of motion? Because I try to make them see everything. If you don't see it, if you just go by feeling, okay,
Mhm.
I can feel. I had also surgery on my leg. I didn't have a knee surgery, but it was. I'm not gonna go into it. It's a long story, but I had a surgery and it blocked my range of motion in my knee. Okay, so I felt it. It was good, but then I tried to go to full squat, and then I see my pelvis is shifting on the left. Yeah, so something's off, and then I realized I'm missing a couple of degrees of movement in my knee. Okay, couple of steps back. Why? Because I missed something that I have not seen. It's hard for me to do a rehab on myself, but if I can make you see the metrics that I'm using to help you be symmetric, and I'm going to use everything I have to make you better. So in early stages, the most important thing is for a person to meet the parameters that I am expecting of you. If you
Definitely.
do them 80 or 90%, that's not enough. You have to do them 100% to for me to allow you to go to the next stage, because if you have an asymmetry after 6 or 7 months, you can get stress fractures because of the asymmetries in your body. You're going to start running full speed. You're going to go into changes of direction, and if you have an asymmetry, it's a growing ground. It's a perfect place for a new injury to happen.
Oh man, I wish 17-year-old Camila listened to this. Because definitely I definitely didn't do the like I didn't have any parameters that I was basing all on feel. And as you just mentioned, that's probably one of the worst mistakes, especially now on that we have the availability for all of this technology. That like making sure that my leg is not 80%, it's not 85%, but it's 100% to be able to go to that next stage. Because I think that's where a lot of people fall again to the injuries. I mean, that's certainly what happened to me. When you start feeling good, you feel like you're invincible and you can do everything. And then that's when I've gotten re-injured 2 times. So that's literally the moment when I get re-injured. When I start feeling better, I start doing things that I shouldn't do, and I get injured again. So I hope that's a lesson there for me now. And
Yeah.
what are those metrics that you normally look at? I mean, you mentioned that you want them to be strong, powerful, and have good mobility, but like, what are those numbers that you're looking for, especially at that beginning stage?
Okay, I'm gonna give you a little bit of insight into my plans. I'm gonna open one for the
Sure.
ACL right now.
Really great.
Just give me a second. After the surgery, the effusion has to be, if we take numbers from 1 to 10. The 10 is the worst part. If you are lower than 1, you can progress. If you are at 2, you have to maintain the current program you're doing. And if you are 3 or more, if your knee is swelling a lot, then you have to regress. Okay. So we're talking about ACL surgeries here. Okay. So if you're losing extension, then you have to regress immediately because something is not working in the exercises I'm giving you. We're doing something wrong. We have to regress and try to see what's happening there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Morning stiffness. If you have a morning stiffness that is less than 20 minutes, that's okay. That's normal because your knee has not moved the whole night. We've been talking about that during the sleep. All of the movements are involuntary. And if the morning stiffness goes longer than 20 minutes, you have to reduce load by 30% because everything we do by load. We are looking at the weekly load of kilograms, weekly load of this. Again, me about the weekly, but
Yeah,
it's like ti- s- enough time to look at all the things that are happening in
definitely, definitely.
yeah. So if you feel pain during exercise f- from 0 to 3, that's okay. But after exercise, if you feel it more than 3, you have to regress. But after exercise, if you feel pain, there is 0 to 3, that's okay. But if you feel it next morning and the pain is more than 2, you have to regress. Okay, so for the quadriceps, this is just like a basic ones.
Yeah,
For the quadriceps muscles, if you do the single leg raise when you're laying in the bed, and if you see that the leg is lagging, that you have to have time, to pull it up, uh, then it means you have to stay on the program or regress depending on the previous parameters. So, 1 second. Yeah, so this is now we're going to the next phase here, and I'm not going to go to all of the parameters because you see where I'm going. You have to follow the
def-
parameters to just go to the next stage, to stay on the same stage, or to regress one stage. It's okay if you have to regress. That not every surgery is the same. Even if it's done the same way, your body is not the same as somebody else's. You're gonna
definitely.
recover differently. You're gonna go through rehab differently. I'm not gonna use the same exercises for you two guys. Why? Because you have different anatomy. You have different biomechanics. I have
Yeah,
to adapt exercises to you, and that's why let's say I started doing some online rehab just for fun of it. I have a couple of players that don't want to work with anyone else but me, and I cannot clone myself, and I'm a little bit sick of traveling. When you're in tennis for 8 9 years, you're traveling all the time, and we started doing it online. It's like these videos they're sending me, they're a gold mine. I can pause here, I can stop here, I can draw the lines, I can see the movements, I can go through slow motion of the movements, I can see all the details that I would not be able to see if I'm working with you in person.
very,
Why?
yeah.
Because I can go back and look at the movement again because not every movement is the same. But I don't like the third rep in the squat was not something was off.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm that kind of sick. Yeah, I know. I want perfection when I'm doing something. So I look at it, okay? See, you're using the shoes again. Which shoes? You're not using the shoes with the hard soles. You're using ones with the soft sole, and your knee is dancing all over, and your pelvis is compensating. So all of those things you have to have in mind when working with an athlete. So it's pretty fun to work with in this kind of field.
I mean, I can tell. I mean, all the things that you're talking about, Tony, and I mean, I would like to. I can just ask you questions about all of this, and we can go for this for hours. Especially now that you mentioned the shoes, so that's something that still like is also of my interest. But for the sake of time, I just wanted to thank you, Tony, for like just being willing to share all this knowledge, all this experience, and then just for loving the job that much because I can really tell, which at the end of the day is you can see the result of it in the high health rate that you guys have in the team. So again, I truly appreciate you just sharing all those insights, all your experience, which is the main thing that you always talked about. And Matze, do you have anything else to say, brother?
No, thank you as well, of course, like taking your time and coming on the podcast. And like I think it's very interesting to see your approach, of course, using the data, but also like
Yeah,
being connected with the players and see how they feel. Because I think if
definitely.
like I mean, I'm not a physio, but I think if you're too strict on the data, it can also like harm the player as well.
Definitely, definitely. And Tony, so we go to the rapid fire questions. Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
I mean, the goal for this question is like to just answer very quick, like of course with enough information to get like viral podcast clips for the Insta or social media part.
Okay, I'm not allowed to swear also, right? I've been holding back,
We can
guys.
cut it out.
Okay,
So,
let's go.
I mean, I hope no question makes you swear. So,
Okay.
Tony, ice bath, yes or no?
Yes, depending on the context and depending on where. After strength training, no, but after long sessions, yes.
Perfect.
Then massage guns, yes or no?
Also, depending on the context, yes and no. No before the match, yes after the match, because the vibrations help you loosen up the tissue, and also it feels good. Why don't use it if it feels good?
Definitely, totally agree. And Tony, those taping an athlete's ankle every game actually protect him.
No, but depending also on the context. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna go say that all the time because there is two sides of the story. If the athlete has an injury that requires taping, yes. If the athlete does not have an injury and wants to use taping because he feels safer, then no. That means that he has to do more exercises to help him feel safer, not to depend on external outputs.
Because basically,
Inputs. I'm sorry, inputs, external inputs.
because basically, let's say you don't have an injury, like you said, it prevents you of by strengthening your joints because you have to tape doing it for you. That's
It actually weakens the tendons and the ligaments because what you're not using, the body tends to forget. If you're always expecting of external stability to help you stabilize the joint, you're going to lose your biological stability because your ankle is going to depend on external stability all the time. That's why knee braces after knee surgeries, you have to take them off. You don't use them for longer periods of time because your knee has to develop your biological sense of stability.
Love it.
perfect. When is playing through the pain a pro mindset, and when is it a career-ending mistake?
Oh, there is one sentence when Milos told me when I was working with him, if nothing hurts, something is not right. So depending on the pain, there is different kinds of pains. If the pain is stopping you from performing the way you want to perform, then no. But if the pain is something that you can manage and play through it without being in a risk of injuring yourself, then yes. But in the end, it's the athlete's choice. It's not a choice that I'm going to do as a physio for you. The athlete has to decide whether he's going to play through it or no. There is no pro mindset in it. It's just like basic human anatomy and conclusions that if something hurts and I don't feel safe playing with it, I'm not going to do it.
Perfect. Tony, I mean, you've worked with a lot of tennis players, and you mentioned yourself that you're kind of sick of traveling. So, what is one thing that actually athletes should do after a long travel to ensure the legs aren't feeling heavy?
It's not after the travel, it's during the travel. If we tend to use the compression socks all the time, even if it's a short period of time, but because the compression socks are used to stop the swelling of your legs, but also when you take them off, a lot of capillary blood flow goes through. And what we talked about earlier about blood flow, you get more of fresh nutrients to your legs, and then the pumps start working even better, so you feel fresh. you don't feel heavy. Like, so let's say you have a 3 or 4 hour flight, maybe there is no use of them there, but if you feel better after using them, why not? And
Great.
also ice baths help a lot after the travels.
Perfect.
And then to give you a scenario, let's say someone has a game at 3 p.m. What would be the perfect pre-game routine for him?
Tennis or football player?
Let's say football.
Okay, let's say football. Okay, depending on a warm up usually starts 45 minutes before, so that's 2:15. Uh, the last meal should be at 1 p.m., so you have time to digest it. And depending on what you like to eat before the match, it should not be heavy food. And I would focus more on the breakfast there than on the lunch.
Mm,
Because if you get a lot of quality nutrients during the breakfast, you're gonna fuel your body perfectly for the match at 3 p.m.
perfect.
And
And then
also hydrate, hydrate, because you're gonna lose a lot of fluids just because you're nervous because the game is coming.
definitely. And then in terms of warm up or some therapy to do, like should you do anything specific on that end?
Uh, as I have said, mobility. You cannot do too much mobility, and also depends on an athlete how you feel your body works the best. If you're some guys like to do a warm up with a massage therapist before the match. Some guys don't. Some guys do like to do a little bit of biking, a little bit of strength training. That also depends on a person. So there is not a specific answer to that. Just adjust the day by you, not by what other people are saying you should do.
Perfect. Perfect. And Tony, I mean, you've talked about so many valuable things, but if you could leave just one piece of advice for the athletes watching, which one would it be?
One piece of advice. Oof. What we talked about, there is a lot of things. I would go back to be a person first, then an athlete. Because at the end of the day, you have to go home to your family and be a normal person, a healthy person, and not get burned out just because you want to be a perfect athlete. Nobody's perfect, but be a person first. Be a
Amazing.
person first and be a healthy person.
Amazing. Something that I think everybody has to remember, even if you're an athlete or if you're a worker, just remembering that human part first. Well, Tony, I mean, as I said, man, as I said at the beginning, I truly appreciate you just hopping into the call and being willing to provide so much value. Like as I said before, I can really tell the passion that you have for the job and the passion that you have for helping young athletes, as you mentioned in the beginning. So I truly appreciate you hopping on, and I'll definitely be bothering you with some questions about my injury.